Calvin T. Mann, leading EMIY, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Hello.
Wow.
Good afternoon. Welcome to EMIY TV, Put Your Family First Podcast, award-winning Put Your Family First Podcast. I don't know what to say about this, but I'm glad we do this work. It has helped us in the long run. And today, as we get through some things, mothers, what's our title again?
Mothers who have too much influence on their sons.
Yes. Thank you. And so I wanted to really share why this was, so I'm coming from school. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm in the school, and I'm coming from the school, and I instantly, I'm paying attention to what is taking place. How you doing, Heather? How you doing? Monique, I'm sorry about that. How you ladies doing?
Great.
Oh, we're good.
And before we get into this wholeness, because, Wednesday morning, the Wholeness Summit takes over the Rise and Grind morning show this Wednesday at 9 a.m. to talk about Friday. This is a big week ahead. How do you feel about that, Heather?
Oh, I'm really excited, but it's more about what happens after the summit than what happens at this summit. Although I am excited about that as well.
That's awesome. So I'm watching the process with our young men at the schools, and I'm watching lip smacking, heads rolling, snaps and all kind of things take place, and it's from our boys. And then I watch the girls. They coming in tough, rugged, right? And so what did it for me is when the young man, and again, I get it. So anybody that takes offense to this work, that's you. It's not me. We are making sure that we provide to our world, to the community, healthy men. Through the boy, right? Excuse me, my sinus is still crazy. I don't know what's out there. But I watched a young man literally walk out with his hair done just like his mom. So, she got her hair a certain way with braids and dreads. He had his hair the same way. Men, we have to fight for identity now. But we're going to tap into that the second half. The first half, we're going to get down, let Heather do her thing, because if you don't, she'll cut you. I'm just telling y'all, this lady loves to cut. And y'all might not understand that, but I know her. Right? And I'm talking about. Right. So, Heather, take it away.
Well, thank you, Calvin. And thank you to our listening audience, those that listen live and those that listen to the post podcast. It's just really important how we continue to share these perspectives on how we can strengthen families. And even with the Women's Summit, our target for the summit is definitely women. But within that target, we're looking at mothers and grandmothers, especially those that are raising sons. And it's really important that we reveal some of our blind spots that we have in mothering and parenting and relationships. Because we have we have created the generations that you see. We have created an acceptable culture that now, when that culture starts to mature and take root in younger and younger people, as we age and we mature, we have this very this disconnect with the behavior that we've actually seeded and created and nurtured. And so we have to come up with new strategies. The first one that we're going to talk about at the summit is that the doors that are behind us and are closed, to leave them closed. We talk a lot about our childhood, our upbringing, and what community was like in our era. We have to recognize that the new era that we're in, there is no room for the doors that were open during our era to be opened again. Those doors are closed, so we have to have this mindset of reimagining what ourselves, what our families, what our community, and what our children can be. And so I just wanted to share a few stats about this generation that we're looking at right now. This generation that is 17 and under, their generation name are the Alphas. So they're Generation Alpha. And most of them right now are under 17 years old. So let me tell you just a few things about them that I think will help enlighten you. And I can talk more about and frame why the Women's Summit is so important. So these are a couple of stats. So it talks about this Generation Alpha, that they're tech empowered, but not tech dependent. So generation before them is tech dependent. So that's Generation Z. They're more tech dependent than Generation Alpha. And they have, and so from their research, I'm using research from Razor. Let me make sure I get their name right. Razorfish. This is from the Razorfish study. And what they learned is that right now, 75% of 8 to 10-year-olds are already thinking about their mental health. And they're talking and being more open around this. And we see this in our mentoring program. So, and right now, so the boys that are in our program are Generation Alpha. And so as we have this conversation, I'm framing it and looking at the boys that are in front of us in this program and why male mentoring is so important and why we have to help men mentor men. We have to help men mentor boys, because what we're seeing is the result of mothers mentoring and raising boys. And what we're doing is we're teaching them to be us. And we have to step back and allow men to teach men, because what we have done to the last 2 generations is teach them how to be mom or mothered. And so this is a point that we're going to talk about that's a blind spot. And what we do is we get very defensive because we only use what we had. So you're not guilty of doing more than loving your sons. You're not guilty of more than loving your sons. What we didn't have is the right information and the right village to help us with this new way that we have to raise our sons. And that has to be together. But we have to go, there's some steps that we have to take and mindsets that we have to shift. And then we have to reimagine what the future of women and men and our children and our community really look like. Now we can't even look at community. We have to look at a village mentality. So this conversation, this summit, is the start of a new village mentality. We can't begin to shape community because we haven't shaped and reimagined who we are as a mother, as a woman, as a grandmother, who we are as fathers and men. We have gone completely sideways as to our understanding. And so we need to really make some shifts and correct that so that we can leave those doors closed behind us, because we have confused our children. They are confused about their gender identity because of how we have invested in raising them. Okay, so a few more facts about our Generation Alpha. Again, this is the generation that's under 17 right now. let's see, they talk about as much as they like gaming, they also like to go outside more than the previous generation or the current generation. They also are credited with being mature beyond their years and how proficiently they use technology. And they made conversation around how 1 through 5-year-olds are proficient in technology. They're not just using it, but they are proficient at it. They know how to put in their videos. They know how to change the channels. They know how to navigate in this tech savvy space. And that's from 1 to 5 years old. And so they are much more ahead of Generation Z in terms of being able to navigate and understand what they're doing and why they are doing it, more so than the generation before them. A couple other things. One, it says that alphas are motivated by a greater sense of purpose. So these children, it means something to them when they give you a hug. I know it was a video that went viral maybe a year or two ago of a little girl. They were at the park and she was just walking up to people, hugging them and looking at them in the eye. And if they had their hair down, she put her hand on her face like, look at me. I'm hugging you. I'm loving you. And it's a little girl. She can barely even walk, let alone talk. But she was expressing love in a way that went viral because it's hard to conceive that a child that young can understand. And it didn't matter to her what gender. It didn't matter to her what race the person was. She was expressing herself in this way. And so this is the generation that we're talking about. So they have their own sense of what love and compassion looks like. If we don't nurture that, we can easily turn that into something that is more detrimental and more harmful. And we've seen what happens when we turn that love and we don't return and nurture that love that they have and that they're expressing. We've seen younger and younger murderers. We've seen them attack people who are close to them, who they're supposed to be loving, and they are attacking their teacher. They are attacking their parents. They're attacking their siblings. If we don't really get a hold of this, if we don't really start to shape and understand who they are, we can easily turn that love into hate because of who we are and what they're seeing and what they're hearing. Kids hear what parents are saying. They hear you on your phone conversations. They hear you and what you watch on TV. They look at what you consider entertainment. They hear the music that we're playing, and they see the behavior. They recognize and smell fear just like any other person would. They see that. And so this whole dynamic of getting more understanding with this generation is extremely important because we can't lose them. Plus, it's 2.2 billion of them right now, and they're only 17. So that means there's more room. By 2024, they expect that it's going to be 2.2 billion. That's not even the end of this generation. There's still a few more years to keep generating more kids from this generation. So they're just beginning. So if we don't get a hold of it, these are the children who are taking over our world. And so we have a lot of work to do in preparation for them. The last thing is that it said, despite growing up in the world of social media, 92% of Generation Alpha respondents understand the power of being an authentic person. How about that? Being authentic. At their age, they are concerned and want to be seen as authentic. Being their authentic selves and being accepted that way. And so we have our work cut out for us. We have a generation that has the potential to change the world just in sheer numbers. And if we don't put the right seeds in them, if we don't give them the right tools for preparation, we can see a world that we can't even imagine, whether that's a positive space or a negative space. This world that they're going to create, that is going to be a part of what we live, we won't have as much control or say so of what happens at the age when they take over. So I think that's just an important perspective to have when we talk about this wholeness summit. Where are our holes as mothers, women, grandmothers? Where are our holes? Those spaces in us that have not been healed, those spaces in us that still have work to do, those spaces in us that are still very sensitive, that are very open, that are triggers. And then the last lesson in this is, what kind of relationships are we having? Are we having the relationship of the whole? And I'm saying HOE. Do we have those types of relationships? And what I mean by that is, do we have the types of relationships where there is no care or concern about what happens as a result of what we do and what we say? That's a whole. Okay? You have no consequence, no sense of consequence. And if it is, you still don't care. That's a whole. We misunderstand what that means when people talking about sexual choices and exploitation. That's a different level, right? But it's still connected. And so we have to determine, who are you going to be? And really, what are you choosing for yourself? Because you've also chosen that for your generation, for your family.
Wow.
Yeah, we're making some choices here, and sometimes they're conscious and sometimes they're not conscious. So we have to be mindful of what we're moving into.
Okay. So that's your update for the summit.
Oh no, I have lots more to share about the summit.
You got 8 minutes.
And did you just put me on the time?
It's the second half of the show.
Well, so for those of you who are coming to the summit, there are some dynamic women who are going to be presenting on multiple topics. There are some tools, there's some insights, there's some preparation that we're going to have, but it's also some fellowship and some good food and some good company and a beautiful view of downtown and surrounding areas that you would not get at a regular summit. So when we talk about summit and what it means the top of the mountain, the peak of where you are. And so when I named this event the Women's Wholeness Summit, I wanted us to understand that we are at the peak of where we can be. And from the summit, you have an opportunity to view and to see things from a perspective, from a height where most people don't get to experience. So when you reach your summit and when you gather together and you share this space of a summit, your highest point, that means your highest point of receiving information, your highest point of knowledge, your highest point of wisdom, that is the summit that we're talking about, that these women, mothers and grandmothers will stand on. And the fact that it's on one of the higher points in the city, that you get to see from where we are going to be meeting, you get to see the river, you get to see into other cities, you get to see at the level of your summit, as far as your eye can see, is what you are responsible to steward. As women, as mothers and grandmothers, as far as your eye can see, you have the responsibility to steward every child in there, every family, every community within the realm of what you can see. That means that puts them in the realm of your possibilities. And so as we talk about the idea of the summit, looking at it from a higher perspective, that higher spiritual perspective, that higher self perspective is who and what we're going to talk about at this summit. And so the women who are a part of it are going to help us navigate that. I want to thank the volunteers who are going to participate. Most of them are in my family, so sisters, nieces, and also my extended family. I have a couple of nieces that are also volunteering. So thank them. If you're attending, thank them when you see them, because they have taken time off, whether they took time off of work, which most of them have. They've taken time out of their lives to be a part of this and to act as a intermediary between the facilitators, the event itself, to make sure that the flow of this event is moving swiftly and smoothly. And so I thank them. And I also would appreciate for those who are attending to also thank them for their time as they interact. And there's another component that I think is really exciting, that you will be able to identify your power group. So there are women of power groups that will be emerging as a result of this summit. And what you learn and what you gain in that group is what you go out and you share, and what you go out and you become. So another amazing component of this summit is that it is the origin of what's next and how we connect. So it's also the launch of our Spiritual Minds app, which is a way that we can connect with information, with resources, and stay in the know. You will always know where you can go to get new information, new tools, how to connect, what events are going on, how you can resource yourself and for your family, your children. When there are exciting things to do for family, you'll find all of that in that app. And so as we grow it together, as we add that content, as we add our articles and blogs and opportunities for training and development, this is a movement. So that means we're going to be moving and in motion. This is not for you to stop here. This is not a one and done event. This is a movement, and this is your kickoff. This is your introduction to a movement. This is not the kind of space that you go in and you have a cup of coffee and you feel good and then you go home to the same thing you left. No, you're going to go back into yourself. You're going to go back into your home. You're going to go back into your family with new tools, new fire in you because of what you're going to do, what you're doing now, and adding to that. You have so many women who are going to be adding to you to make you stronger, to make your journey easier, to make this walk one that we do together. And my dream and my goal is to see the spark that I saw in 1997. I've seen it twice in my life when women come together, and I'm looking to see that same spark happen at the summit.
Well, that's awesome. Good job. We are proud to encourage me. I'm young to be a proud sponsor and supporter.
Oh, make sure I say that. Of course,
I'm going to miss this event. I'll be in a school, but I'm going to be there at the start. You can believe that. So I'm in.
Thank you for reminding me. I do want to acknowledge our sponsors. So first, I do want to acknowledge Encouraging Me I'm Young, Good Fathers Only, for always supporting the work of women, mothers, and grandmothers. That's first. Second, I want to thank our community partner, Huntington Bank, for hosting us at that event. In particular, our co-host, Alexis Camper, who has been a godsend and a blessing in this process, making sure and coordinating everything that happens. So thank you, Alexis. I want to thank the Wisdom Institute, who is sponsoring, co-sponsor of this event. I want to thank One Love Home Care. They're also a sponsor of this event. And I do also want to thank Spirit Traveler, who is our spiritual advisor, who will be part of this event. I want to thank Sanania Joy for her voice and using her podcast on her platform to help us share and reach this platform. I want to thank Podcastic, the Rise and Grind Show, for also being a voice and helping us get the information out and helping us to and supporting us by your encouragement. And there's so many others that are a part of this initiative. So it's not a solo and it's not a one-time event. We are not talking events. We're talking movement. We're talking things that help us move in the right direction. And our sponsors and our supporters and our champions are the ones that help us to do that. So thank you, Calvin, for reminding me.
Not a problem. Now to the commercial.
All right.
Every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMIY Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Back. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I'm not coming back.
I'm not coming back. I'm not gonna go back to what I've come through.
No.
No.
We're not repeating that. That's over. Mm-hmm. On to new and bigger, better things. So, shout out to Hamtramck Schools and their young men and their administration for buying into EMIY Apparel. So, we're going to win this race. I'm just letting you know that.
We are.
Again, earlier as I was sharing about the influence mothers have on their sons. And I'm saying this in a way, because I know we are all defensive about our positions in life. We hear it all the time, right? I've heard things like on parental exhaustion. I've heard things like, when it comes to our sons, he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to go. I've heard things like, I can't make it today. I'm not dealing with this today, right? So we didn't heard it all, right? When it comes to our sons. So the question today in the school was, how many of you guys are on video games? Right? And it's interesting that you talk about the alpha, right? This is a 15-year-old young man that's very impacted. Lost his father and is trying to fill a fatherhood void at 15. Goes to work for his sisters. Now, this is the story he's given. But when we were coming out, we saw several young men who got in the cars with their moms with the same hairstyle. And so one was so dynamically impacting to me that I had to pause to keep from emotionally responding, because mothers, you have too much influence on your sons. Now, I get it, right? We hear it all the time. Nobody else gonna do it. His daddy not around, right? We didn't heard it all, right? Every scenario you could possibly paint, right? Until you talk to the father. And it never fails when we have these conversations that there's two different perspectives and stories being told as to why. But the other dynamic is when the girls, right? The girls come in, they're confident, they stand up strong, and they talk to the boys and call them bro. So we're hearing our women refer to a man as bro. We're hearing our boys refer to the women as bro. Coming through these challenges, and you can, really take it how you want to take it. But I've said this before, we're out of order, but we don't realize we're out of order because we gain resources when we have that boy in our hands. There are a number of resources out there, right? a number of resources out there that in particular is handed, right, to the child through the mother. It's not a balance, right? So Tennessee made a law, right? And I put this in one of my men's groups about the Tennessee law. They passed it where you cannot get your name on the birth certificate unless there is a DNA test if you're not married to the woman. So you can't get your name on that birth certificate unless you go through that DNA test. Now, can you imagine how impactful that is going to be on the opposite side, right? Because I know the system has set it up to where if you got custody of the child, you gain all the resources. We're about to change that. So they might as well get ready. There are some new laws coming down the pipe in Michigan, right, in regards to fathers having access to their children. So in that process, again, mothers, you have too much influence on your sons. So your sons, can get stuck in Oedipus, mom. So in other words, the son gets stuck in Oedipus. Everything he says, do, move, giggle, wiggle, talk is only going to be done for his mom. Women are struggling in relationships with men because men are not getting the mature access to mature to be in a relationship. And then now, because the woman has been the way she is, we're not staying in relationships where it's easy for us to blame me for your happiness and exit a relationship. Right? It's easy for me to say, you know what? I'm not happy. It's your fault. It's easy to say, and I'm gone. Knowing you're going to have access to all the resources. So the man, he's impacted. But who's more impacted than the children when we don't align ourselves? The mother's influence on the boy has him very reactive. He responds in the same way for which he is raised. He's loud. He rolls his eyes. He snaps his finger. He smacks his lips. We have young men going to sit down on the toilet to use the restroom. And we're not just saying at the age of 5, 6, and 7. I'm talking there are boys who are normal, who think this is normal to sit down and use the restroom. So men, as she has stated, men, right, we're responsible for mentoring the boy and the men, each other. It is so important that we get to that space because, again, the mother has too much influence on the male. So it's very difficult for feminine energy and feminine energy to be in the same space, and the feminine energy is on the man. It's difficult for it to even be respected because I have a perception because I'm super strong in certain areas. Right? When you look up the information, she's right here. She's looked at all the information. The woman abuses the boy more than anybody. The boy is abused more by his mother than anyone. But we will deny these things. The point that I'm trying to get clear here is, and I'll add this, men in those positions are the same men who will say that my son will turn out all right because he's with his mother. And that's where he'll parent from. And that's very difficult. No one should raise a child alone. And because we think that we're doing that, it causes a lot of harm. And I'm telling you, just like today, when we asked that question, there were 6 boys present. All 6 raised their hand. And as soon as they got into the conversation about video gaming, it was like Oprah was in the room. The whole conversation got up and got loud. So now they were doing and talking and doing their thing around video games. And we looking at them, and we let them go for a second, right? We let them go for a second.
What were they talking about, though? About the video games?
They just joysticks. If somebody mess with my joystick, we got to replace that. Or if they not willing, I'm talking about, and they got real serious. And I said, look at y'all. I said, if you don't have character, this stuff should be secondary at this point. But it's not, because of the way they're responding. They're saying, you see? They're saying what is very important to them. So we had to point that out to them. Your influence, allowing them to make adult decisions, is impacting them when they get into relationships, in which we covered today. A woman wants a man. She wants a man that she can follow, right? And we made it clear, this is about leadership. At some point in your life, Dave brought it home, at some point in your life, you're going to have to be a leader. Right? Well, so while you're in a position of learning, but at some point in your life, you're going to be a leader. Do you have what it takes to lead your family? Do you have what it takes to lead yourself?
Sure.
So it got real deep when the video game. I'm talking, my hands went up. We asked any other question, it was like one hand. As soon as we asked about video games, boom, 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 boom. All 6 hands went up.
And we understand why, too.
Well, yeah, we get it. You know, they were alphas in the building, all under 17. One of the, like I said, the 15-year-old is taking on the role since his father passed away, right, to help provide for his family. That makes sense. Man.
Sounds like a lot of pressure.
Well, yeah.
Sounds like a lot of pressure. But at least he had his father in his life long enough to know, to model, that aspect of being a father, taking care of your family, making sure that your family's needs are being met. And the fact that that is part of what he models is definitely a good sign. It's definitely a good sign. And also it's a sign that some men need to be, surrounding him to help him to learn the other pieces that go along with that. Because your view can be very narrow at the same time. Because if the only ones that are feeding that idea are the women, you have the potential to have a volatile situation. And we've seen a lot of brothers and uncles and and boyfriends go to jail or worse because they were intervening in some activities that the women or the mothers or the sisters could have made better choices, and they pulled them into situations that caused them harm, whether that was jail or physical harm. We have pulled them into our mess, and it could have been something that was avoided in the first place. So that would be what I would be concerned about, that young man having enough, because he's protecting women, to have enough men in his life and his network to help him navigate those spaces in a way that's healthy and in a way that really equips him to be the leader that he's obviously trying to be.
Yes. And so these are the dynamics that play out in the community, in the schools. This is where people are having the difficult with our males. I was sharing with a process that we know of a school where they got pads. The room is padded. And the boys get to go in there and just spaz out, right? And they got meds on campus. When I worked in the juvenile, the one thing that they gave our boys was meds. So then when they leave the system, they're basically addicts. As soon as they left juvenile, now they got to find or gain access to these pills. Systematically turning our young men into addicts, into more criminals. Right? And that situation is what just pushed me even further. Right? This is such an important conversation. Right? And unfortunately, I can't be in the room at the women's holding this but it's going to come a time where I have got to have a conversation with mothers. We make way too many excuses when it comes to our sons. Way too many. Like, if you look at the text message, right, we just got 2 text messages for the mentoring program, right? One of them, right, this is the 6th absence for this young man. And so I'm going to let her handle that, because if I handle it, I'm not going to be kind. Because how you came to me to get the mentoring, and you've been responsible already for 6 absences in this mentoring program. 6. So if this was the spring, he will not be getting the jacket or none of that. We do not reward negative behavior. Period. Bottom line.
So part of the process that Amy, and then our boss sessions, which is building our sons, these are the sessions with the mothers and the grandmothers that are raising their sons, is it didn't happen overnight. So in order for you to have a son in our program, he has to be at least 8 years old. So that means you've had 8 years of the course that you've taken and how you deal with your son. So in our session, if we can continue to build in those relationships, build on that knowledge, build on that structure, so that we help mothers and grandmothers who are raising those sons get some support, get some tools, because part of that boss session, there are 3 things that we cover in that session. We cover self-care. How are you taking care of you in the midst of this? Because we also do a blood pressure check. We do it at least 4 times in the program in our sessions, so that we have a benchmark of what your average blood pressure might be and what your blood pressure looks like over time. We have women who have heart attacks and strokes as well, because we're not managing our blood pressure, and which means that we're not managing the pressure that we're experiencing and what we're carrying. That's the weight that we're carrying as women, as moms. And so if you're not giving attention to those things and doing some interventions so that you don't continue down that course, then you find yourself in further and further health challenges. And what it does is, for women, it plays out and it wreaks havoc on our bodies. And we have to be mindful that that's what happens under stress. There are, and I do in one of my workshops, there are 42 physical ailments that show up when you're under stress. You start losing hair, your skin breaks out. There is you start having heart palpitations. Your anxiety increases. I mean, all of these different ways that it plays out in your body. And if you're not paying attention and monitoring, you can check yourself right out of here. And I feel like not on our watch. if you're applying some of the tools that we are actually using and teaching and sharing in the sessions, if you are using some of the resources, community resources that are available to help you share in this burden of parenting. And finally, if you're not on board with making the necessary changes and even sacrifices that you have to make in order to help men help your sons, if you're not reinforcing that at home, you're just undermining all the work, and you're not going to see the difference in them, and you're not going to see him change and become who he needs to be. Our sons, one, they want their mothers to be proud of them. They actually want their mothers to be proud of them, even if they don't seem to express it that way. But the truth of the matter is, they do. Just like our men want their women to be proud of them. But if we are acknowledging the wrong things, then they're going to give us more of the wrong things to acknowledge. And so if I can't get positive praise from you, then I will take the negative. And that is also what happens with our boys. We are always fussing at them, so they accept that as a part of the attention that they believe that they need. They shut down, but they know that you're still fussing. That means you must still care about me. We're sending very bad information. That's bad information. We don't want to affirm their negative. We want to encourage the positive. We want to encourage their growth. We want to encourage those things that are innately in them as the seeds of men to become full, healthy men. And so this is a process that we have to go through. But that means some things we have to unlearn in terms of behavior. Some doors we have to close and allow to remain closed. And some expectations we need to lift and raise and hold steadfast to. And so this journey of being a mother and grandmother in this age and trying to improve the conditions of ourselves, our own health conditions, our own mental health conditions, and those of others is a very challenging burden to carry. And especially if you're carrying it alone. And so mentoring is an opportunity to share that burden. But you can't isolate, and you can't not use the tools that you've been given and expect the different outcome or the outcome that you want for your son or that he even wants for himself. So we have a lot to do to help shape this next generation, and we can do it. That's the amazing part of this journey and all of the work that's going on, that we can do it. We can change. We have to understand that there are consequences to our actions. And so as we develop this idea of understanding the consequences of what we do and what we don't do, it helps us give a clear direction of where we need to be.
You might want to take this before I go in, because I am up to here with that parent.
Well, let's not do that now. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, Heather, let's really close this thing out. I'm looking forward to Wednesday. Excited.
With the Rise and Grind show.
With the Rise and Grind morning show Wednesday morning. And I'm excited about all of this, right? We continue to do some amazing work in spite of the obstacles and the journeys that's placed in front of our children. So tell everybody where they can reach you at.
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. You can reach me by phone at 313-759-7855. Again, that's 759-7855, and that's area code 313. You can text me and you can leave me a message there if you want to connect.
You can reach me at calvintman.com for your schools, your classrooms, youth, particularly your boys. I will come in and talk with them, reach out. I say how you have to be careful in how we navigate our youth, particularly, again, the area of boys, for families. I'm like, really, it's important to me that every young man has an opportunity, right? Because he'll come across more opportunities when he will quality relationships. Opportunities are always out there. There are more opportunities than there is failure. It's what you do to get that opportunity. Putting your family first means sacrifice, all right? And the word sacrifice means to give up something, even when you are uncomfortable. Even when you think something is more important. It takes a sacrifice to get a young person where they are. I now understand some things clearly as to what has taken place with young people. With that being said, please, parents, whatever you do, get out of your own way, right? Make sure that our young people get to that school every day, regardless, right? Make sure that they get a chance to move and be away from failure. With that being said, my name is Calvin T. Mann. I'm the president and founder of Encourage Me, I'm Young. You have been watching EMIY, Put Your Family First podcast. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.